Yo, man, I'm here to work, man. I ain't sang in a week. I mean, I'm 13 years old, and I'm telling him, look, you gonna put me in the studio, man. You got Biggie Smalls in there, you got Craig Mack in there. I'm not here to party with you. I don't want to go to the clubs. Matter of fact, I'm too young to even be in here. Why you got me in clubs? We would fight, we would tussle.
Usher look like he fresh off a goddamn plane. Usher
Fresh off the garden stage. That's my brother right here from day one. We used to wake up and, damn, pause, but like that's how. Back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes. You know what I'm saying? Before pause was invented. You know what I'm saying? But it's my brother for real. We used to actually wrestle off of the Frosted Flakes because he used to always get up early.
In a tense and silent federal courtroom, all eyes were fixed on the judge as he called the next witness. The room fell into stunned silence when Usher Raymond, the Grammy-winning R&B icon, stepped forward. This wasn't about music or label drama. It was about revealing the dark secrets lurking behind Sean Diddy Combs' empire. For years, Usher kept quiet. He smiled through interviews, dodged questions, and played the game. But now, with Diddy facing serious federal charges including trafficking, coercion, and running a criminal abuse enterprise, Usher has chosen to break his silence. He told the court that the truth had been weighing on him for years. Usher began by recalling the day his mother told him he would move in with Diddy in New York. At only 14 years old, fresh off his debut album and hungry for fame, he was ready to climb the ladder. L. Reid had arranged this mentorship, believing Diddy's influence would fast-track Usher's career. But none of them could foresee the world Usher was stepping into. "I thought I was going to learn how to be a star," Usher told the court, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "What I saw instead were things no teenager should ever witness." From the moment he entered Diddy's sprawling Midtown Manhattan penthouse, Usher was met with overwhelming excess. Champagne accompanied breakfast trays, strangers-filled rooms he didn't even know existed, and famous faces lounged half-dressed or unconscious. It wasn't a home. It was a scene, Usher explained, calling it the Flavor Camp. At first, he thought it was just branding, but later realized it was indulgence. The mentorship quickly shifted from music lessons to a disturbing lifestyle observation. Diddy wasn't teaching vocals or performance. Usher was told to watch and learn how grown men operated. He said, "This is how we do it. Don't ask questions. Just watch and learn." One night, Usher woke up around 3 a.m. to masked figures entering the apartment. Soft music played, candles lit the hallway, and what he walked into looked like a ritualistic party, structured, chilling, and surreal. Cameras rolled, lists were checked, and no one seemed surprised. "I thought I had walked onto a movie set," Usher recalled. "I knew I shouldn't be seeing this." Though he was told to return to bed, sleep wouldn't come that night. That moment forever changed his view of Diddy. Usher's testimony also revealed a silence from those who should have protected him. His record label, his mother, and industry insiders all appeared unaware or unwilling to intervene. Many saw Diddy as eccentric, but few understood his quiet, absolute control. If he didn't like you, your career stopped. If he liked you, silence was part of the deal. He hinted at others trapped like him. Young talents promised fame, but slowly pulled into Diddy's orbit without understanding the cost. He didn't name names yet, but suggested more would come forward. There were people all around us, assistants, drivers, musicians. Everyone acted like it was normal. But deep down, we knew the adults had failed us. Usher's testimony deepens. Caribbean trip, NDAs, and the mansion with secrets. Usher's second round of testimony sent even deeper chills through the courtroom. He recounted a trip to the Caribbean when he was just 15, framed as a relaxing getaway with Diddy and a few close associates. No press, no cameras, just an isolated retreat. "I thought I was there to learn more about the business," Usher said. But it quickly became clear, "I wasn't there for music." He hesitated, visibly shaken. "I won't go into every detail," he told the court, "but I will say this. I wasn't given a choice in the kind of environment I was brought into. And it took me years to realize how manipulated I had been." The courtroom sat in total silence. After the trip, everything changed. Usher described how Diddy became increasingly possessive and authoritarian. There were always new people around, always parties, always shifting rules. And every time Usher pushed back or questioned things, he was reminded exactly who held the power. He'd say, "You don't bite the hand that feeds you. Remember who gave you this life." But Usher locked eyes with Diddy as he delivered a final blow to that memory. "It didn't give me this life. You gave me nightmares." The third part of his testimony introduced perhaps the most alarming revelation: a contract he signed at 16. Labeled a standard NDA for Bad Boy Records, the agreement went far beyond business confidentiality. Usher told the court it had specific language referring to private gatherings and discretion. "At that age, I didn't even understand what most of it meant," he said. "My mom co-signed it. The lawyers said it was routine, but now I see it for what it was, an agreement to keep me silent." He signed a contract because he trusted them. That signature bought my silence for years. I couldn't talk about what I saw, who was there, how they acted. I was told speaking up would ruin the brand. But what about what it did to me? Years later, in 2009, Usher tried to give an interview to a major outlet. When the questions turned personal, he said Bad Boy's old legal team reached out immediately. They reminded me of that NDA, told me they hoped I wasn't trying to ruin my reputation. He dropped the interview, but the pressure didn't end there. According to Usher, veiled threats started rolling in. From people still loyal to Diddy, people he hadn't spoken to in years. "You think you've moved on from that world, but it doesn't move on from you. And if you speak up, the consequences aren't just professional. They're personal. They're dangerous." Then came a bombshell. Usher pulled out a physical copy of the NDA in front of court. The judge admitted it into evidence. He pointed to a section referencing audiovisual materials and unauthorized duplication. Phrases that, in the context of the alleged private video collection known as Diddy's freak-offs, took on a much darker meaning. Usher's voice cracked. "That document made me feel like I was crazy, like what I saw didn't happen, just because I wasn't allowed to say it out loud." His voice trembled as he described one final event, a mansion party in Atlanta, 1996. He was 17. Diddy was hosting. Celebrities and models were everywhere, but something felt off. The energy was strange, Usher recalled. There were people there who didn't seem to be part of the music world at all. The house was luxurious, marble floors, top-tier security, a DJ spinning until the morning. But what haunted Usher wasn't the extravagance. It was a locked room. He described watching Diddy whisper to a guard, who then opened the door. Diddy turned to him with a grin. "You're not ready for that yet." But Usher looked anyway. There were people in masks. That's all I'll say. I didn't even know what I was looking at. Then, he paused and dropped a line that froze the courtroom. "I think that night changed me," he said quietly. "I saw things I still can't explain. I don't know if it was legal, but I know it wasn't right." Usher continued his emotional testimony. He pulled out a set of photocopied journal pages he'd kept since 1998. What started as a notebook for song lyrics slowly turned into something much deeper, a place to record private memories and haunting encounters from his time around Diddy. One entry from March 1999 stood out. "Had dinner with Diddy and 3 execs I didn't know. They kept talking about loyalty. Said loyalty keeps you on tour. Honesty puts you back home." Diddy laughed. Another dated October 2000 simply read, "Too many secrets, too many masks." Diddy says it's just the culture. I don't agree. When the prosecutor asked whether he had ever shared these entries before, Usher shook his head. "I was afraid of losing everything. I didn't think anyone would believe me. So why now? Because I've lived with it long enough," he said. "And it's time the truth comes out." Then came a revelation even his closest friends hadn't heard before. In 1997, at just 18, Usher said Diddy invited him to meet a high-profile investor in Miami who could supposedly fund his first world tour. It sounded like the opportunity of a lifetime. Usher followed Diddy's instructions, dressed sharp, stayed polite, and showed up at the City Hotel expecting a business meeting. What he walked into was something entirely different. 3 men lounged in robes, champagne flowed freely, and several young women sat silently in the background. One man asked Usher, "Do you want to be remembered forever?" But Usher made it clear he wasn't talking about music. Diddy soon left the room, and Usher was left alone. "They didn't touch me," he said, "but one of them put a hand on my shoulder and said, 'You can stay or you can leave, but you'll never get another invitation like this again.'" Usher left, but the fallout was swift. A tour opportunity vanished. A major producer suddenly backed out of a project. "No one said it was because I left that suite," Usher recalled. But after that night, doors that had always been open suddenly shut. Weeks later, Diddy allegedly showed Usher a handheld video clip of another young artist caught in a compromising situation. He laughed as he played it. Usher testified, "It was something I know that artists would never have agreed to, unless someone made him." When asked whether Diddy had directly threatened him, Usher said he didn't have to. The people around him did. They didn't use words. They used silence. And exile. That's when Usher said he truly understood the dark reality of fame in Diddy's orbit. It wasn't about talent anymore. It was about submission. That's how you stayed famous. A familiar pattern with Bieber. Usher's voice trembled as the camera zoomed in. This part is the hardest, he admitted, because it's not about me anymore. He shifted his focus to Justin Bieber, who he had mentored and helped bring into the spotlight. In the beginning, Usher said he simply wanted to be a protective big brother. But then, history repeated itself. Diddy started inviting Bieber to what he called Flavor Camp, a phrase Usher chillingly remembered from his own teenage years. He was 15, Usher said, and they were treating him like a grown man. One night, in 2011, Usher received a disturbing call. It was Bieber. He didn't say anything at first, just breathing. Then he said, "I want to come home." Usher's team tried to track him down, but Bieber disappeared for 2 days. When he finally resurfaced, he refused to make eye contact. "It's fine. I'm good now," he said. But Usher knew better. Usher took the stand with a calm but resolute demeanor, recounting the moment that shattered his remaining trust in Diddy. He described how, years ago, he confronted the music mogul in private and asked him a question that had haunted him for years. "What are you doing to these kids?" Diddy's response, according to Usher, was bone-chilling. "Same thing they did to me. It's how the game works," he said, casually chuckling as if there were nothing unusual about it. That response was more than disturbing. It was a confession wrapped in nonchalance. "After that, I stepped back," Usher explained. "I didn't want to be associated with it anymore. But watching what happened to Justin, I couldn't keep my mouth shut." He was referring to Justin Bieber, though he didn't mention him by name in court. The implication was clear. Witnessing the alleged manipulation of another young artist pushed Usher past the point of silence. The courtroom grew even more tense when Usher disclosed a previously unreported threat. In 2018, he received a call from an unlisted number. The voice on the line told him coldly, "Tell him to keep his mouth shut, or we'll shut it for him." When asked who he believed was behind the threat, Usher turned and stared directly at Diddy's legal team. "I think you know," he said, sending ripples across the courtroom. The most disturbing part of Usher's testimony revolved around a private event in 2002 that he had never spoken about publicly before. It was supposed to be a casual get-together, he said, but it felt like something else entirely. Held at a secluded estate in the Hollywood Hills, the gathering was described by Usher as secretive and unsettling. He said he was invited under the premise of meeting a European music producer who was interested in working with him. But when he arrived, the scene was completely different. There were no producers, no label execs, just shadows, security, and silence. He described how all guests had to surrender their phones upon arrival and were handed what were labeled as non-disclosure agreements, but with unusually aggressive wording. They read more like threats than contracts, Usher said. The lighting was dim, the music was low, and there was a palpable tension in the air. "There were people there I didn't recognize, people who didn't belong in a room full of artists," he said. "And then there were faces I did recognize, some very recognizable, but I won't name them." He hinted that some attendees were public figures who have yet to be connected to Diddy, but may surface as the trial unfolds. The pivotal moment came when Usher attempted to leave the party early. He was stopped by a man he'd never seen before and guided to a private room. Inside, he found Diddy seated alone. He looked me in the eye and said, "You're not ready yet. You still think this is about music. This is bigger than that." Usher said the conversation chilled him to the core. He left immediately afterward and never attended another Diddy-hosted event again. Shifting from emotional memories to corporate misconduct, Usher presented damning documentation that revealed a pattern of exploitative contracts within Bad Boy Records. At just 14, he had signed a development deal that locked him into a 5-album contract and relinquished control over his masters until he turned 35. "I didn't know what I was signing," he said. "I was a kid. I just wanted a chance." The contract effectively stripped him of creative and financial control for over 2 decades. Usher said he wasn't alone. He named other artists like Carl Thomas, Total, Black Rob, and Craig Mack, each of whom, he claimed, were brought in under similar deals. Diddy knew how to lure people in, Usher explained. He made you feel special, important, like you were chosen. But the moment you started asking questions or saying no, you were out. He recalled that a private accountant had once compiled a spreadsheet for him showing that he was owed more than $4.3 million in back royalties. When I brought it to Diddy, Usher recalled he laughed, told me, "If you knew what was really owed to you, you wouldn't sleep at night." Court documents supported Usher's claims, showing that many artists under Bad Boy had quietly accepted settlements, sometimes for mere thousands, just to reclaim the rights to their own names or perform the music they had created. Perhaps one of the most heartbreaking parts of Usher's testimony came when he revealed an attempt to stand up, not just for himself, but for others. In 2011, he said he tried to organize a secret meeting with other former Bad Boy artists to discuss their shared grievances and explore legal options. I rented out a private space, had security, sent word through trusted people. I wanted us to unite. But the meeting never happened. Someone tipped him off, Usher said, and suddenly people pulled out, one by one. He said he realized then just how deep Diddy's reach went. He had eyes and ears everywhere. Usher ended his testimony with a quiet but powerful statement. I'm not here to destroy a legacy. I'm here to reclaim mine and to make sure no more kids walk into this game blind. The silent collapse. What the public never knew, until now, was that at the peak of Usher's early fame, right after the release of his hit album 8701 in 2001, the rising star quietly vanished from the public eye for a full week. Industry insiders and fans assumed he was simply taking a much-needed break from an exhausting tour schedule. But behind closed doors, Usher was fighting a deeply personal battle, one that would have remained hidden forever if not for this courtroom confession. Usher revealed that during those 7 days, he checked himself into a private mental health facility in Northern California under a pseudonym, seeking refuge away from the glare of fame and the pressures that came with it. I wasn't ready to tell anyone, he testified. Even my closest friends thought I was just taking time off, but I was breaking down inside. The roots of his breakdown, Usher explained, stretched back years to his teenage years, specifically to his time living with Diddy. The trauma was long buried, but it resurfaced in the form of relentless panic attacks beginning around his 20th birthday. These attacks came unexpectedly, often triggered by everyday things, flashing lights at concerts, crowded elevators, or even certain songs on the radio. They seemed so small to everyone else, Usher said, but to me, they felt like warnings, alarms in my body. The turning point came one night while he was staying at a luxury hotel in New York City. As he walked down the dimly lit hallway toward his suite, he suddenly caught a familiar scent, an exotic candle fragrance that Diddy used to burn in his mansion. That smell transported him instantly back to that house, to memories he had desperately tried to bury. My body froze. My heart was racing. I started shaking uncontrollably, he told the court. I couldn't breathe. It was like the walls of that place were closing in on me again. That terrifying moment led to an emergency hospitalization. His team flew him to a specialized clinic, where he remained under observation for 5 days. During that time, Usher opened up to the in-house psychiatrist for the first time ever about the dark reality of his teenage years, an era filled with unspoken horrors hidden beneath the glittering surface of fame. I told the psychiatrist things I'd never told a soul, Usher said quietly. I told him about the things I saw as a kid that no child should ever witness. About a world where silence was the currency of power, and survival meant smiling while everything inside you was breaking. The psychiatrist diagnosed Usher with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, a diagnosis that stunned many both inside the courtroom and among his global fan base. It reframed the story of the young superstar, revealing that behind his smooth voice and polished performances, he was battling invisible scars left by his past. Usher recounted that it took nearly 2 years of intensive therapy before he could sleep through a night without waking up in a cold sweat from recurring nightmares. The nightmares weren't just memories. They were reminders of what I couldn't control, of the others who were trapped in that world with me. Though he stopped short of naming others who might have suffered similarly, Usher hinted strongly that he was not alone. Several other young artists who had close ties to Diddy have gone through similar trauma, he said. Some have simply disappeared from the industry. Others have faced emotional breakdowns, but most remain silent out of fear. He solemnly recounted hearing about one young artist who overdosed, another who attempted to take his own life, and yet another who vanished without a trace. I was lucky, he admitted. I had the resources to get help, but many others didn't. When prosecutors asked why he kept this secret for over 2 decades, Usher's expression hardened. Because in 2001, nobody would have believed me, he said firmly. Puffy was untouchable, a king of the industry, and I was just a kid with a voice. Speaking out back then would have meant the end of my career, and worse, my truth would have been buried. The room fell into a heavy silence, the weight of his words settling over everyone present. It was a revelation that shattered the glossy image of fame, showing a hidden side where every platinum record and Grammy speech masked a silent, internal war. Usher was no longer just telling his story. He was giving voice to all those young artists who had been silenced by the industry's dark underbelly. For years, I was just trying to survive, he said. Now, I'm fighting to make sure that no one else has to.